Welcome, I'm Terry Christensen and this is Valley Politics. Today we'll focus on the Opportunity to Work initiative on the November ballot for the City of San Jose. The aim of the initiative is to help part-time employees gain working hours by requiring employers to offer additional work hours to current part-time workers before hiring any new employees. Our guests are Derecka Mehrens of Working Partnerships USA and Silicon Valley Rising, the campaign in support of the measure, and Mahood of the Silicon Valley Chamber of Commerce, which, you won't be surprised to learn, opposes the initiative. Later, we'll hear what some San Jose residents think about the initiative, and then Zahra Billoo will brief us on the work of the San Francisco Bay Area Council on American-Islamic relations. We'll close our show with the second part of our interview with Velma Million, whose quest to create Lake Cunningham Regional Park earned her the title Lady of the Lake. In this part of the interview, Velma will tell us the story of how and why a councilman and a car ended up on the top of the unfinished 280-101 highway interchange. All this next on Valley Politics. Welcome everyone, and welcome Derecka Mehrens and Mahood. I'd like to start just by getting a little information about your organizations. So Derecka, start us off with something about Working Partnerships and Silicon Valley Rising, please.
You got it. So Working Partnerships, my organization, has been around 21 years in the Silicon Valley region. We consider ourselves a community labor organization that is pushing for an economy that works for everyone in Silicon Valley. We were formed out of the labor movement and its community allies to do smart research, policy, and community organizing to create a progressive movement in the region. Silicon Valley Rising is sort of the culmination of about 19 years of that work, where we, coming out of the recession with our community coalition and our union allies, wanted to really push back on the national narrative that the tech sector and the tech-driven economy was working for everybody. And so we seek to inspire the tech sector to help us create a new inclusive middle class by raising wages, organizing contract workers, and pushing back on the housing crisis in the region. Okay, and we'll come back to some of the ways you're trying to do that. Mahood, tell us about the Silicon Valley Chamber of Commerce. What's your role?
So I'm the president and CEO. The organization has been in existence for 135 years. We have about 1,400 member-based businesses, so we're a membership-based organization, all the way from the very small mom-and-pop businesses that may be operating out of their home to the largest tech companies that call Silicon Valley home. 80% of our members are located in the city of San Jose, and they're from very small home-based businesses to the largest tech companies throughout the region.
What are some of your policy priorities?
So we don't just focus on policy. We do economic development strategies, we do advocacy, we do community development, we do a lot of networking, connecting member businesses together to help them grow, and then we also do political action.
Okay, thank you. So Derecka, Opportunity to Work, the Opportunity to Work initiative. Tell us what it is, why we need it.
You got it. So I'm going to take you back to 2012 for a second, and at the end of 2012, our Silicon Valley Rising Coalition was thrilled to win a minimum wage increase in Silicon Valley. It was at the time the highest minimum wage increase in the country. Went from $8 to $10 an hour, which is funny now that we're talking about a $15 minimum wage, right? And yet, as that moved forward, two things happened. One, the economy didn't fall apart. Actually, the economy kept growing, and we didn't experience the job loss that some thought we would experience. But another thing happened. Workers in our region started to tell us that they were having a hard time getting hours, that it didn't matter if they were making $10 or even $15 an hour if they can't pull together full-time work. And so we started to really think about what are the innovative policy strategies that we could be moving to get at this problem of underemployment, which isn't really showing up when people talk about the Valley economy thriving. It is growing. Unemployment is at a very low rate. But that masks this problem of underemployment, where especially low-wage workers of color can't get access to hours to cobble up a full-time schedule. And so Opportunity to Work is the culmination of research and some organizing strategies to say that businesses in San Jose should offer their employees, their existing qualified employees hours when they have them available before hiring new workers. It's a very simple tweak that would allow workers to have the freedom to choose to work or not as hours become available on the job.
So that's it.
That's it.
So Matt, the Chamber opposes the Opportunity to Work initiative. Tell us why.
So we oppose the measure for some pretty simple reasons. It's flawed logic. It doesn't create any additional jobs for disadvantaged workers. In fact, it'll actually weaken or actually lessen the number of jobs. And it's a simple math equation. There's 72,000 part-time jobs in the city of San Jose. Assume they're working 20 hours a week. You provide full-time employment to those 72,000 employees, those workers. That's going to move everybody to 40 hours. Now you've moved to full-time employment, 36,000 employees. But what just happened to the other 36,000 workers? There's no hours for them. This initiative does not create one new hour of work. It's flawed logic because just because you pass a policy doesn't mean a business, an employer is going to create new hours to employ a bunch of new people. It just doesn't work.
I'll bet Derecka has a response to that.
Yeah, I do. I mean, so I wish we could get every part-time worker who wanted hours a full-time schedule. This initiative, unfortunately, doesn't do that. What it says is that if you have a couple hours available, if you have 2, 3, 4, 10 hours available, and you have an existing worker who's trained and can do the job, you should offer them the hours, see if they want them. They may not want them. They may say, I can't work that schedule, I'm already working, I work at another job. So the idea that somehow this measure, by offering an employee hours, would somehow displace work, that's frankly not going to happen. And two, in the regional economy, we have tons of part-time. There's no shortage of part-time work in our economy. So in fact, we have the opposite problem. We have the problem of not enough jobs that pay enough and offer enough hours to give people a full schedule to be able to earn enough to survive. And that's what this measure is about. It's about getting workers who can and want to work the hours they need so their family can survive.
Do you want to follow up to that?
Sure. Look, not every business can offer everybody a full-time job. Businesses need flexibility. There's the need for businesses to offer seasonal employment, to offer internships, to flex up and flex down based on their schedule. Lots of employers in the city of San Jose just don't operate with a full-time workforce. And many of them, if they could, they would offer full-time job because hiring employees is expensive, it's hard, and turnover is even more expensive. So if you could hire and retain people at a high level, offering them more hours, I think many businesses would. But you don't want to reduce the competitiveness of employers by locking them down into a policy. And we're concerned that this affects 1,200 businesses. It's not just 1 or 2 businesses, it's 1,200 businesses located throughout the city of San Jose, and a lot of nonprofits, which weren't expecting this type of regulation to be put on them, and it really impacts their ability to offer internships, employment opportunities to at-risk youth, and other ways of growing employment and first-time job opportunities for some of our youngest and lowest skilled workers.
So the Chamber opposes, but surely the Chamber recognizes how hard it is for low-wage part-time workers to survive with the high cost of living here. So if this isn't a partial answer, what would the Chamber offer as an answer to that problem?
There is no doubt there's a crisis around here about how expensive it is to live here. I mean, we see it in every industry cluster, the ability to retain employees. It just doesn't affect the lowest skilled and the lowest paid workers. It permeates our entire economy, and it is a crisis. I don't think putting additional regulations and additional burdens on business is the way that we can solve this crisis at any level of employment. And I think the City Council of San Jose, the Mayor of San Jose, they agree with us. They had an opportunity to pass this initiative and pass it as an ordinance when it was presented to them. They did not do that. In fact, they took a position, the Mayor and the City Council took a position to actually oppose the measure. So, they did that because they thought it was a flawed policy. If they thought it was a good policy, they would have adopted it.
Derecka, to Matt's point earlier about this applying to so many businesses and nonprofits, what do you say to a small business or a nonprofit organization? I mean, Working Partnerships is a nonprofit organization. What do you say to them about how they meet this new responsibility?
Yeah, a couple things. So first, I think folks are surprised often about how many businesses already do this anyway, and nonprofits, especially in the conversations I've had. Because think about it. When you decide that you have more hours and you need to hire someone to do those hours, that right there, hiring costs you money. You have to go through the process of posting a job ad, you have to train the person, et cetera. So the idea that instead of doing that, you would offer it to an existing employee, there's no, the cost zeroes out, right? You're spending money either way. You're spending money either hiring a new one or you're spending money, I would argue probably just more time posting an hour to your existing workforce, first of all. And many, many folks already do this. Matt's point about 1,200.
But if they already do it, why do we need the ordinance?
Well, here's why.
Okay.
So Matt's point about 1,200 businesses, that's because there are over 60,000 businesses in San Jose, and there's a small business exemption in this ordinance because we recognized that it's an innovative new policy. It's not been done before anywhere in the country quite like this, and that we wanted to not burden the businesses, small businesses, with that while we're figuring it out. And those 1,200 businesses are the largest in the region. And many of those businesses are the very businesses who, the reason that they are not offering the hours to existing workers is to avoid benefits. It's to avoid paying benefits to their workers. And I'm talking about very large businesses with profitable margins that can do so. And so, yes, we are saying through this ordinance that we want to require them to offer those hours first to their existing workers. Now, there's a second thing that we did in the ordinance because we also understand that innovative policy requires us to adapt. We put a hardship exemption in because we don't know what we don't know. And so we put a hardship exemption in that would allow the City Council and the administration, the Office of Equality Assurance, to determine on a case-by-case basis whether a business really can comply or not. Because we think there are going to be some folks who want to comply, can't figure it out, need the time, or potentially can't make this work. So there's a hardship exemption in the ordinance for these very issues.
That's not good enough?
Well, it doesn't define what a hardship is. Candidly, it doesn't. It says that hardships can be determined by the City Council. So what you have is the City Council and the city staff determining what is a hardship. It's completely undefined. It's completely open, which then could create political motives for somebody creating a hardship or not based on who sits on the City Council. You could have campaign donors influencing how and when hardships are created. Again, it's a flawed policy. It's affecting several hundred nonprofits that weren't anticipating this, and this is why the Silicon Valley Council of Nonprofits actually took a position to oppose the measure. And many other large employers who weren't anticipating this, that are in the sports and entertainment industry, are also opposed to this because it impacts their ability to operate their business. And the last thing is, what's interesting is the proponents, the folks who wrote this legislation, have written themselves out as an exemption. So if you have a collective bargaining agreement, this ordinance would not apply to you.
You know, it sort of seems to me like back in 2012, the voters passed the minimum wage increase. And I think to a lot of voters, they looked at their ballot and they thought, duh, yeah, we should just do this. Mm-hmm. And I suspect a lot of voters are going to do the same thing with this. It just kind of, on its surface, makes complete sense. So I guess my question is, what kind of campaign is the Chamber going to help organize to persuade people otherwise?
Yeah, there's no doubt when you read the ballot language and you read this opportunity to work, it sounds great. I want everybody to work. I want everybody to get more hours. The challenge is that's not really what it does. Again, it doesn't create more jobs. It's going to pit worker against worker, skilled worker against lower skilled workers.
So how are you going to get that message across?
Our job is to communicate the reality and the truth about this policy, that it doesn't create more jobs, that it doesn't work the way everybody says it's going to. This is the first time this policy, this innovative policy, is being tried in the country. and it's being brought to San Jose as a test case, and union money from across the country is being spent here in San Jose to see if they can make it work. It's our job to educate, excuse me, the public about the policy isn't going to work the way it sounds. It sounds great, but it's just not going to work the way you think it's going to.
Derecka, what's the Yes campaign going to look like?
Yeah, it's going to tell the story of what's happening to workers in the Valley.
How?
I mean, we're going to put the faces of the workers who every day show up to work. Pablo Nevarez has worked in the fast food industry for 16 years. He works 3 part-time jobs right now. He is trying to cobble up 40 hours a week. He can't even with those 3 employers get 40 hours a week. Can't afford his rent. Has to figure out every day how he gets to work and back, and cobble up his schedule. And we're going to say that, you know what, employers here can do better. They can offer, instead of hiring new people, and he sees this every day in his employment, and where they're hiring new folks, giving them 5, 10, sometimes they don't even schedule them for 1 week, and then they'll schedule them for 5 or 8 hours the next week.
Derecka, Matt, we need the 3 hours that Matt first proposed. To talk about this,
That's
but
right.
we're out of time today. Thank you both very much for being on the show. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Terry.
Now let's hear what some San Jose residents have to say about the Opportunity to Work initiative. Then Zahra Billoo will brief us on the work of the San Francisco Bay Area Council on American-Islamic Relations.
I would support that. I think anything that gives employers some choices on how they're going to manage their employees, and also employees a choice of how they want to work their hours. I've worked lots of part-time jobs, and there have been times where I really needed those lower hours because I was going to school or doing other things, and there have been times where I would have really loved to have picked up more shifts and been able to have that flexibility without having a bunch of other people hired that then you have to coordinate all those schedules together. So choice is great, and I think it does allow a lot of choice between employers and employees.
I'm in the middle. To be absolutely honest with you, I'm in the middle. But I support the idea of it and the idea behind it, because I want employees to be treated fairly in organizations. Everybody wants that. I think the wording and how they actually get this legislation passed is going to be it's going to be walking a fine line. I firmly believe that businesses should have the ability to hire the best people available to get the job done, and they shouldn't be inhibited to do that. Well, at the same time, it's their responsibility to respect their employees and their existing employees and their part-time employees. We all got to work together on this.
Well, I think it's a good idea because the companies have already invested so much time and effort into the part-time employees already. So it would just make sense that the part-time employees would be offered more hours. So they could, go to bigger jobs, do more in their current roles, and take on extra opportunities that are available to them. So I think that would be great, yeah.
My initial thoughts are there's so many variables in regards to that question. There's so many different types of businesses and so many different types of companies that offer a lot of different services and a different, and they have different roles for different people. So, I think that there's definitely pros and cons to each side of the argument. I think it's a great idea.
Well, as a recent graduate from San Jose State, I was an intern at local technology companies here nearby, and I would be part-time and they would try to hire another part-time intern instead of giving me more hours, and I had the time to do it. So it was really frustrating as a student trying to make my way, nobody's supporting me. It would have been great to have been able to have the opportunity. So I think it sounds like a great idea.
Hello, my name is Zahra Billoo, and I'm the Executive Director of the San Francisco Bay Area Office of the Council on American-Islamic Relations, or CAIR for short. Our office is based in Santa Clara, but serves the estimated 250,000 Muslims in the 9 Bay Area counties. We are part of a larger network of CAIR offices with approximately 30 locations across the country, including 4 in California and headquarters in Washington, D.C. We opened our doors in 1994 to provide an organized civil rights and advocacy platform for the American Muslim community. Our mission is to promote justice, enhance the understanding of Islam, and empower American Muslims. We carry out this mission by providing free legal services for individuals who are discriminated against because they are Muslim or they are mistaken for Muslim, working with the media to put forward authentic Muslim voices, doing outreach in our own community as well as the broader community to share information about civil rights and civic engagement. And we work with community members and elected officials to advocate for laws that protect the rights of all people. Some of our flagship efforts include a survey and report on the experiences of Muslim public school students with bias-based bullying from their peers and sometimes even their teachers. An annual advocacy day, which brings hundreds of people to Sacramento to meet with their elected officials, and providing legal advice and assistance to hundreds of American Muslims who are facing employment discrimination and law enforcement harassment. At a time when anti-Muslim sentiment is being normalized through a toxic election cycle, and anti-Muslim hate violence has increased with attacks on individuals and places of worship, the work we do at CAIR has become even more urgent, and we always welcome community support and engagement. Please visit our website at ca.cair.com to learn more about our work, how you can support it, and the different ways you can get involved.
Have you ever noticed the Joe Cola interchange signs at the intersection of Interstate 280 and 101? Well, today on Where Are They Now, Velma Million, who led the community effort to create Lake Cunningham Regional Park, will tell us the story of the stunt that put Councilman Joe Cola and a car on top of the unfinished interchange and helped get it completed. There's a very famous photograph of San Jose City Councilman Joe Cola and a car up on top of the 280 101 interchange before it connected it to anything. They built the overpass, but they didn't connect it to the freeway. So there's the councilman and the car up in the sky on the freeway, and I think you had something to do with it.
Well, I and others. I was secretary of the Council for a Balanced Community, working with those that want to save the valley and those that, let's say, needed jobs but could improve with their jobs the valley.
Construction industry and
That's
folks
right.
like that. Yeah.
It was a council of, and we all were discussing. I call it the poll, and we were all saying, just renewing why we are a group. And I spoke about, that pole up there, it does not give any beauty to the city, but it could help our transportation system. That was a mess. And they agreed. So now we all sat down and planned how, when we're going to do this. But that was the men. I was the only woman, and they had to go to one that they felt would listen to us, and that was Joe Cola.
On the city council, yeah.
And they went to him, and they spoke about what we were thinking about, how we can improve the situation with help. And Joe, would you listen? He said, Joe was always there. And yes, because I knew Joe very well. He was a great council member. He listened, and he would ask questions. He was a man that we all admired greatly. But at that point, I didn't know what the men were doing relative to Joe. And so as time went on, a plan was formed, and Joe agreed to the plan of going the plan was putting a car up on this pole.
Up on the overpasses. Yeah.
Yeah. I call it the pole. And they were talking to Joe about how we were going to do it, and would he stand by a car if we put it up there. And he agreed, knowing Joe knew he was afraid of heights, but he agreed, yes. A couple of them then bought a car somewhere, a used car, and they brought it over to the site, and that was pretty high, and the wind is very strong up there. So I said, you gotta pack it with iron, anything, because the wind will just take that car and off it goes. And they did, and they pulled the car up and
with a big crane?
With a huge crane.
Yeah.
And got it up.
And how did they get Joe Cola up there?
He was in a cage.
In a cage.
And we put him up there. Now we're still, he's afraid of heights.
Yeah.
And we put him up there. And in the meantime, I went to the police, sheriff, and I told them what we're going to do. I said, if you see anything extraordinary, don't stop. And I went to our police department, but I forgot to go to the sheriff. And that sheriff, when I saw that car travel, I went, oh no. You say prayers at these times. And so it just went past.
The sheriff's deputy on patrol went past you.
Past.
Cool.
San Jose police just went past. And we were so great. It worked.
It worked. You got him up there.
We got him
Somebody
up
took
there.
the famous photograph.
Yes, I don't know who. And it was, after that, the plan worked. He was up there. And that's when I said, thank God I left, the rest was their job. And it was exciting. The governor called.
Governor Jerry Brown.
Yeah, and he was, because now it's in the papers, right? And so he screamed at the city, and somehow he knew that our council members did it, the operating engineers. They were the ones with the crane.
Yeah.
And he was so angry.
So this got the attention of the governor and of Caltrans, the state transportation agency.
Yes.
And ultimately, before very long, that interchange was finally completed and connected to the freeway.
Right, it was.
And we all take it for granted now.
Well, I know.
Except you.
Yeah, every time my daughter and I travel over
you think of Joe Cola.
Yes, and that was death defying, for him. Mm-hmm. He couldn't even climb a ladder. And he was up there with his arms up, and what he told me, what he said when he was up there, I did it. And he conquered the height problem.
And that interchange has recently been dedicated, has been named after him.
Yes.
They posted a sign, it's the Joe Cola interchange.
He was always there to listen and to help. Joe was a fine council member.
Think about that next time you're driving on that interchange. Next month, we'll be back to the present with a 1-hour special featuring all the runoff candidates for 3 San Jose City Council districts. We'll record our program in the City Council chambers at 7 p.m. on September 29th, and you're welcome to join us. or you can watch the show in October. Meanwhile, you can catch up on previous shows on our website at creatvsj.org or on YouTube by searching for CreaTV San Jose. You can also email comments to us at valleypolitics@creatvsj.org, tweet us at valley_politics on Twitter, and follow us on Facebook, where you can post comments and suggest topics or future guests. And now, that's all, folks. Thanks for watching Valley Politics.